The professional wrestling and entertainment star Hulk Hogan has died in the US. Just information coming from WWE.
Behind the bright lights, the roaring crowds, and the unforgettable Hulkamania persona, Hulk Hogan lived a life fans thought they knew inside out. But when the doors of his mansion swung open after his death, the truth hit harder than any wrestling move he ever delivered in the ring. What was uncovered inside those walls wasn't just surprising. It completely shattered the picture people had painted of him. From the bizarre to the deeply personal, the discoveries left fans around the world stunned in silence. So, what secrets did Hulk Hogan's mansion hold? And why did they shake everyone to their core? Keep watching, because this story is about to pull back the curtain on a side of Hogan you never imagined. From Terry Bollea to Hulkamania, the rise of a wrestling icon. When news broke on July 24, 2025, that professional wrestling legend, Hulk Hogan, had died in his Clearwater, Florida home, it felt like the end of an era. He was 71 years old. According to the Clearwater Police Department, Hogan suffered a sudden cardiac arrest and was rushed to Morton Plant Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. His passing shook fans around the world, not just because they lost a wrestling hero, but because it felt like a piece of wrestling history had been buried with him. The tragedy came only a week after Hogan had been hospitalized with neck and back problems. News began to circulate that the wrestling titan was nearing his end. Back in May, he had undergone a fusion procedure on his neck, one of many surgeries he endured after decades of brutal injuries inside the ring. For a man who had always seemed larger than life, invincible even, the reality of his frailty was hard for fans to accept. But before the bright lights, the ripped shirts, and the unforgettable Hulkamania chants, Hulk Hogan was just Terry Gene Bollea. He was born on August 11, 1953 in Augusta, Georgia, the youngest son of Pete Bollea, a construction foreman, and Ruth Bollea, a homemaker and dance instructor. Life was simple, but for young Terry it wasn't always easy. Growing up, he struggled with body image. In one interview years later, he admitted that as a kid, he was bullied for having what classmates called the largest head in elementary school. On top of that, he was overweight, and so self-conscious he refused to take his shirt off at the beach. The man who would one day become the ultimate symbol of muscle and power once felt ashamed of his own body. High school changed that. Terry found an escape in sports. He played baseball and was good enough to draw the attention of MLB scouts, but an injury to his arm crushed his dreams of becoming a professional pitcher. Still, Terry was restless. He hid in shop class with friends, mimicking the moves of their favorite wrestling stars like Dusty Rhodes and Dick Murdoch. The seeds of his future career were being planted, even if he didn't fully realize it yet. After graduation, he attended Hillsborough Community College and the University of South Florida. But his real passions weren't in the classroom. He played bass guitar in a local rock band called Ruckus, living for music and the stage lights. Yet something else kept calling to him. At a local gym run by wrestlers Jack and Jerry Briscoe, Terry's towering frame and relentless work ethic caught their eye. They pushed him to give wrestling a shot. By 1979, Terry Bollea was dipping his toes into professional wrestling. He appeared under ring names like Super Destroyer and Terry Boulder. During a TV interview that year, something unexpected happened. His massive frame made him look bigger than Lou Ferrigno, the actor who played the Incredible Hulk on TV. From that moment, a new nickname stuck, the Hulk. What no one knew then was that this simple comparison would spark a transformation into one of the most recognizable names in sports entertainment. It wasn't long before Vince McMahon, the mastermind behind WWF, now WWE, noticed him. McMahon saw something more than just size and strength. He saw marketability. Terry Bollea was about to become Hulk Hogan, the rise, fall, and reinvention of a wrestling icon. When Vince McMahon gave Terry Bollea the name Hulk Hogan, he wasn't just rebranding a wrestler, he was unleashing a cultural phenomenon. Standing 6'8" and weighing over 300 pounds, Hogan looked like he had been ripped straight from a comic book. Add in his platinum blonde hair, trademark bandana, and handlebar mustache, and fans couldn't take their eyes off him. His signature move, flexing his 24-inch pythons, turned into a rallying cry for millions. Hogan's early matches against Andre the Giant lit a fire with fans. By 1984, he cemented his status as wrestling's biggest star when he defeated the Iron Sheik for the championship belt. The crowd went wild. Overnight, Hulkamania was born. Fans everywhere chanted his name, children wore his merchandise, and professional wrestling went from a niche sport to mainstream entertainment. Hogan wasn't just winning matches, he was changing the entire industry. The pinnacle came in 1987 at WrestleMania 3. In front of 93,000 fans, Hogan picked up the 500-pound Andre the Giant and slammed him to the mat. The moment became known as the Slam heard around the world, a defining image not just for Hogan's career but for wrestling itself. Hogan went on to hold 12 world championships between WWE and WCW, becoming a living legend. But the 1990s weren't kind to Hogan. Wrestling's golden boy became entangled in the steroid scandal that rocked WWE. Hogan was forced to testify against Vince McMahon in court. He admitted to drug use, and the fallout tarnished his reputation. His wrestling career stalled, his movie attempts fizzled, and the once untouchable hero seemed to have fallen from grace. Just when people thought Hogan was finished, he reinvented himself. In 1994, he shocked the world by signing with WWE's biggest rival, WCW. 2 years later, he embraced the role of villain. Calling himself Hollywood Hogan, he joined forces with Kevin Nash and Scott Hall to form the New World Order, a rebel faction that flipped the wrestling world upside down. Fans who once cheered him now booed, yet they couldn't look away. Hogan was hated, but he was relevant again. For a time, he even reached levels of popularity that rivaled his golden era. By 1999, Hogan traded in the black and white for his classic red and yellow. He returned to WWE in 2002, feuding with new stars like Randy Orton. His final major match came at SummerSlam 2006, where he pinned Orton, proving he could still hold his own. Outside the ring, Hogan wasn't afraid to experiment. He starred in movies like Rocky III, No Holds Barred, and Mr. Nanny. He popped up on TV shows such as The A-Team, Baywatch, and even his own reality series, Hogan Knows Best, which gave fans a front-row seat into his family life. He also launched businesses, from a short-lived restaurant called Pastamania to a line of frozen cheeseburgers, and even his own beer brand, Real American Beer. But it wasn't all wins. Many ventures failed spectacularly, like his Hulk Hogan energy drink or the infamous Hulkamania meatball maker. In later years, he joked that turning down the chance to endorse the George Foreman grill cost him hundreds of millions. In 2019, he returned to WWE programming, and in January 2025, he made what would become his final live appearance on Monday Night Raw. Even outside of wrestling, Hogan stayed larger than life. He threw his support behind Donald Trump, delivering a fiery speech at the 2024 Republican National Convention. He even joked that he'd be willing to run for office himself, promising to rule with an iron fist. It was classic Hogan, never subtle, never boring, always larger than life. When Hogan finally retired in 2012, it marked the end of a 35-year career. He had redefined wrestling, crossed over into Hollywood, and built a brand that extended far beyond the ring. But when fans look back, they don't just remember the championships, the rivalries, or even the controversies. They remember the feeling of Hulkamania. They remember the goosebumps of watching him rip his shirt off, cup his ear to the crowd, and bring an arena to life. But if the ring was where Hulk Hogan thrived, home was where the cracks began to show. Because behind the cheers, the endorsements, and the glory days of Hulkamania, his private world was unraveling. The drama waiting outside those arenas would prove to be even louder and far more damaging than anything scripted under the bright wrestling lights. Inside Hulk Hogan's tumultuous love life. Over the years, Hulk Hogan's life outside the ring proved just as dramatic as the matches that made him a household name. Controversy seemed to follow him at every turn. from leaked audio of a racist rant that he later admitted was unacceptable to a long and brutal legal battle with Gawker over a tape that ended in a $31 million settlement. Hogan's personal life was anything but simple. And when it came to love and relationships, things were no less complicated. Hulk's first marriage was also his longest. In 1983, he married Linda, the woman who would stand by him as he rose from wrestling star to global icon. Together, they had 2 children, Brooke, born in May 1988, and Nick, born in July 1990. For years, the Hogan family projected the image of a glamorous but relatable household. Their VH1 reality show, Hogan Knows Best, pulled viewers behind the curtain and into their daily lives. Running for 4 seasons between 2005 and 2007, it seemed to capture a family riding high on fame and success. But behind the cameras, cracks were forming. After more than 2 decades together, Linda and Hulk split. Hogan had an affair with their daughter's best friend, Christiane Plant, who was 33 years old at the time. The two finalized their divorce in July 2009. During that time, Linda reflected to the Tampa Tribune that the war was finally over. She admitted she still loved him and reminded the world that he was the father of her children. Hogan responded in his own way, pointing out that when you spend 23 years with someone, you always hope for the best. But sometimes life tears you apart. The end of their marriage came with heavy consequences. Their divorce marked the end of a 24-year partnership, leaving Hogan stripped of much of his wealth and carrying the burden of a damaged reputation. It also fractured his family. His relationship with daughter Brooke became strained, and she reportedly felt betrayed, especially by the circumstances involving her best friend. Though the divorce was finalized in 2009, the emotional scars lingered long after the paperwork was signed. Years later, Linda would continue to air her feelings publicly. In March 2025, she posted a video reflecting on her marriage, describing Hogan as both an addict and a liar. She confessed that even more than a decade later, her family remained in shambles. She explained that it had been about 15 years since she left him, and yet her family was still the worst mess. The tension between her and Brooke only seemed to confirm how deep the divide had become. In a strange twist of timing, just 4 days before Hogan's death, Linda shared a throwback picture of herself with him on Instagram, captioning it with the words, "The good old days." But life moved on, and so did Hogan. In December 2010, he married Jennifer McDaniel. Their wedding took place in an intimate ceremony behind his home in Clearwater, Florida. For a while, it seemed like he had found stability again. Their marriage lasted nearly 11 years before it quietly dissolved. In October 2021, Hogan filed for divorce, though the world did not find out until February 2022, when he took to social media to announce that he was dating someone new and clarified that he and McDaniel were no longer together. Love, however, was never far from Hogan's story. By July 2023, he had proposed to Sky Daly, a yoga instructor he had fallen for. The proposal came during actor Corin Nemec's wedding reception, a moment that felt as spontaneous as it was heartfelt. A few months later, in October, Hogan and Sky were married. She would stand beside him during his final years, caring for him as he endured multiple surgeries for his neck and back. Sky later reflected that despite the challenges, Hogan fought hard and held on strong until the very end. And yet, for all his triumphs and failures, both inside the ring and outside of it, Hulk Hogan's story always seemed to circle back to one theme: strength. Even when love broke apart, when reputations were stained, and when family ties grew distant, he kept moving forward. But strength is a complicated thing. Sometimes it lifts you up. Other times it is tested in ways no audience could ever imagine. Scandals that rocked Hulk Hogan's world. Throughout his decades in the public, Hulk Hogan didn't just battle opponents in the ring, he also wrestled with scandals that spilled over into his personal life. From lawsuits and leaked tapes to public fallouts with his own family, Hogan's world often played out more like a soap opera than a fairy tale. One of the biggest storms came when Gawker obtained a secretly recorded tape from 2007 that showed Hogan with his best friend's wife. In 2012, the now-defunct website posted a 9-second clip of the tape, igniting a media firestorm. Outraged, Hogan filed a $100 million civil lawsuit against the outlet, accusing them of violating his privacy. What followed was one of the most sensational legal battles in celebrity history. In 2016, a Florida jury sided with Hogan, awarding him $140 million. For Hogan, the verdict was more than just a financial win. He told people that he felt relieved because people finally believed he hadn't created the tape for entertainment. According to Hogan, the video had been secretly recorded, and he testified in court that he had no idea the encounter was being filmed. Still, the humiliation of its release weighed heavily on him. The legal battle dragged on for years before finally ending with a $31 million settlement. But Hogan didn't fight alone. Behind the scenes, tech billionaire Peter Thiel helped bankroll Hogan's case, setting the stage for one of the most talked-about courtroom victories in modern celebrity history. Just as the dust was settling, another scandal erupted. In 2015, audio transcripts leaked, revealing Hogan making racist remarks about his daughter Brooke's love life. The words were shocking, and Hogan moved quickly to issue a statement. He admitted that about 8 years earlier, he had used offensive language during a private conversation, and he called it unacceptable. He explained that there was no excuse and offered an apology for his behavior. In another statement, Hogan clarified that those remarks did not reflect who he was. He stressed that every person in the world mattered, and that no one should be treated differently because of race, gender, orientation, or religion. Still, he admitted in an interview with People that he had used the N-word and described it as one huge mistake. The fallout was immediate. WWE erased Hogan from its Hall of Fame, effectively cutting ties with one of its most iconic stars. But wrestling fans know that in Hogan's story, comebacks are never far away. By 2018, he was reinstated, slowly clawing his way back into the world he once dominated. And then came the family drama. Hogan, his wife Linda, and their children Brooke and Nick had given the world a front-row seat to their lives through the VH1 reality series Hogan Knows Best, which aired from 2005 to 2007. On the surface, the show painted the picture of a fun-loving, tight-knit family. But off-screen, reality was far more complicated. Just a month after the show ended, Linda filed for divorce after 24 years of marriage. The reason was scandalous: infidelities, including an affair Hogan had with their teenage daughter's close friend. The divorce not only split their marriage, but also left deep scars within the family itself. Those wounds resurfaced years later. On March 26, 2025, Linda appeared in an emotional Instagram video where she reflected on the aftermath of their breakup. She admitted that it had been 15 years since she left Hulk Hogan, yet her family was still a mess. She revealed that she had become estranged from her daughter Brooke, explaining that after Brooke had a major fight with her father around 8 years earlier, she cut her mother out of her life as well. In the same video, Linda did not hold back. She accused the retired wrestling star of being a addict and a liar, suggesting that the chaos of their marriage had cast a shadow over their entire family. Yet only days later, her tone shifted. In an interview with TMZ, she softened, describing Hogan as a good father, even while insisting he had been a terrible husband. It was a complicated picture. Hulk Hogan, the wrestling icon; Hulk Hogan, the scandal-plagued star; and Hulk Hogan, the man whose personal choices left his family fractured. Through lawsuits, leaked tapes, and messy breakups, the world saw a side of Hogan that was far removed from the hero who once stood tall in the ring, cupping his ear as crowds roared his name. Hulk Hogan's death and what really happened. Hulk Hogan's cause of death was confirmed in July 2025, 1 week after medics were rushed to his Florida home. The wrestling legend, who for decades embodied strength and charisma inside the ring, passed away on July 24, 2025, at the age of 71. Behind the larger-than-life persona that fans adored, Hogan had been battling serious health issues that few knew about. According to medical records, he died of acute myocardial infarction, better known as a heart attack. The documents also revealed something the public had not known. Hogan had a history of leukemia, a form of cancer that affects white blood cells, along with atrial fibrillation, a heart condition that causes irregular rhythms. His medical records also included approval for cremation, marking the end of an era in wrestling and pop culture history. On the morning of July 24th, police and medics were dispatched to Hogan's home in Clearwater Beach at 9:51 a.m. The call reported a person in cardiac arrest. First responders worked desperately to save him, performing resuscitation efforts for 30 minutes. He was rushed to a local hospital, but despite their efforts, he was declared dead. The New York Post was the first to break the news of his cause of death, but it was soon confirmed by People. WWE also issued a statement, mourning the loss of one of their biggest stars. The company acknowledged that Hulk Hogan had been more than a wrestler. He was one of pop culture's most recognizable figures, a man who helped WWE achieve global fame in the 1980s. They extended condolences to his family, his friends, and the countless fans who had cheered him on throughout his career. Almost immediately, tributes poured in. John Cena and Ric Flair, two of wrestling's most iconic names, shared their grief. Flair, who had been close to Hogan for decades, expressed in a post on X that he was absolutely shocked by the passing of his friend. In truth, news of Hogan's failing health had been circulating for weeks. By June, rumors claimed he had been hospitalized and was dangerously ill. His representatives tried to calm fears, telling E! News that there was no reason to panic despite the swirl of reports suggesting he was on his deathbed. For many, the confirmation of his passing still came as a gut punch. Jimmy Hart, Hogan's longtime friend and former on-screen manager, described his devastation in the days following Hogan's death. Hart revealed that he had spoken to Hogan the night before and that everything seemed fine. He recalled that by the next morning, it was all over. For Hart, it was heartbreaking because the day before had been so positive. He admitted the suddenness of it all hit like a shock, explaining that they had avoided visiting Hogan in person in recent weeks out of concern for his fragile state. They wanted to protect him from potential infections, even something as small as a cold. Another close friend, former WWE booker Eric Bischoff, offered a glimpse into Hogan's final days. On his podcast, Bischoff recalled visiting Hogan and finding him weak and embarrassed to be seen in such condition. Hogan told him he wanted to see him but felt ashamed because of how sick he had become. Bischoff shared that he reassured him, saying he didn't see what Hogan saw in the mirror. During their visit, which lasted about an hour, Hogan struggled to talk and every word seemed to require effort. Yet even then, Bischoff remembered he was still the same person at his core. Hogan had been open about his health struggles in the past. Speaking on Logan Paul's Impulsive podcast in 2024, he admitted that he had endured 25 surgeries in 10 years. 10 of those had been on his back. Both knees and hips had been replaced, along with work on his shoulders and other parts of his body. Years of wrestling and punishing stunts had taken their toll, leaving scars that never fully healed. Hogan was survived by his wife, Sky Daly, his ex-wives, Linda Hogan and Jennifer McDaniel, and his two children, Brooke and Nick. For fans, his death marked the end of an era. For those who knew him personally, it was the loss of a man who had lived through triumph, scandal, pain, and redemption, all while remaining larger than life. Yet as the tributes poured in and the headlines faded, another story began to unfold. One not about Hogan's legacy in the ring, but about the secrets he left behind at home. Because when the doors of his Florida mansion were finally opened, what was uncovered stunned everyone. What was found in Hulk Hogan's mansion after his death. When Hulk Hogan passed away in July 2025, the world mourned the loss of one of wrestling's biggest legends. Fans remembered the roar of Hulkamania, the bandanas, the flexed muscles, and the larger-than-life persona that turned him into a global icon. But behind the gates of his Florida mansion, there were secrets waiting to surface, truths about family, fortune, and fractured bonds that painted a far more complicated picture of the man who seemed untouchable in the ring. Court documents revealed that Hogan had made a striking decision just 2 years before his death. His daughter, Brooke, had been removed from his will. Instead, Hogan's estate, valued at around $5 million, was left entirely to his son, Nick Hogan. At 35, Nick stepped forward as the sole beneficiary, filing paperwork to act as co-personal representative of his father's estate, alongside a man named Terry McCoy. The request was granted, giving Nick legal authority over everything his father left behind. What exactly did Hogan's fortune include? The filing listed $200,000 in cryptocurrency, nearly $800,000 in personal and intellectual property, and the rights to his publicity valued at a staggering $4 million. There was also mention of a potential medical malpractice lawsuit tied to Hogan's neck surgery in May 2025, a case believed to be pursued by his third wife, Sky Daly. But the most eye-catching revelation was not the money. It was the decision to write Brooke out of his will. The documents showed that Hogan had updated his will multiple times. It was first signed in 2016, then amended in 2017, 2021, 2022, and again in July 2023, when Brooke's name was finally removed. For fans who saw the Hogan family as the smiling stars of VH1's Hogan Knows Best, the change was shocking. Yet for those close to the family, it was the culmination of years of quiet estrangement. Even more intriguing, the filing made no mention of Hogan's real estate, his most prized possession. The Clearwater compound where he spent his final years consisted of 2 neighboring beachfront homes in one of the city's wealthiest areas. Hogan purchased the first property in 2012 for $3.3 million, just a few years after his divorce from Linda. 4 years later, he bought the house next door for $1.6 million, gradually creating his own private estate by the water. Together, the homes were now worth an estimated $11 million. The first home, Hogan's primary residence, sprawled with 5 bedrooms and 5.5 bathrooms, the kind of property fit for a superstar. The second was smaller, a 4-bedroom, 2-bath retreat that acted as an extension of his empire. Both properties were listed under an LLC and a trust tied to Hogan and his ex-wife Jennifer, which meant the legal future of the estate could be far more tangled than the court filings suggested. So why was Brooke removed from the will? According to reports, it was not out of anger or a final feud. Brooke's husband, Steve Oleksy, explained that in 2023, she herself requested to be taken out of the document. He revealed that Brooke had wanted no part in claiming money that stemmed from the Gawker settlement. That lawsuit, which ended with Hogan receiving $31 million, was born out of a tape leaked to the public in 2013. The scandal had cut deep, especially for Brooke, because the tape included hurtful comments Hogan made about her and her former boyfriend. Oleksy admitted that while Hogan's bank account had been changed forever, Brooke saw the settlement as tainted money. He explained that it was not built on accomplishments in the ring, but on humiliation that left wounds in his wife's life. He recalled how the comments caused pain not just to her, but to many other families, and that even after years, there had been no direct apology and no real closure. He said that Brooke never asked for a single dollar and believed no amount of money could erase that pain. After Hogan's death, Brooke spoke out about her fractured relationship with her father. She clarified that their distance had not come from one explosive fight, but from a series of painful conversations that piled up over the years. She wrote on Instagram that she and her husband had even moved to Florida to be closer to him, but it only made the situation worse. She described it as if everything around her father was covered in a thick veil, a force field she could never break through. Eventually, she stepped back, admitting she had to protect her own heart. It was a tragic turn for a family that once lived under the same roof, smiling for the cameras on reality TV. Were you ever a fan of Hulk Hogan? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.